The purpose of this presentation is to provide an update on the implementation of the Local Control Accountability Plan, the LCAP, the work of two significant committees, and their recommendations for providing a district-wide structure for academic intervention. The LCAP is the document which describes the district vision, goals, and action plans. It is a collaboratively developed document which focuses on educational priorities identified by the state of California. It also reflects the district budget and is reviewed and revised annually. A district needs assessment was conducted as a starting point in the LCAP development process. The needs assessment team reviewed DIBEL scores to measure the early literacy skills of kindergarten and first grade students. We learned that about half of these students are performing below benchmark targets, which lead to the development of LCAP goal number 1, which is to increase the percentage of students meeting DIBEL's benchmarks targets for grades K and 1 by 5%. Progress toward this goal is being reviewed by individual schools and the district 3 times per year. The team reviewed student performance on the STAR reading assessment and discovered that less than half of the district students in grades 2 through 8 are reading on grade level. These statistics lead to goal number 2A, which is to increase student performance on the STAR reading assessment by 5 normal curve equivalent points. We reviewed student performance on the STAR math assessment and learned that only about half of the students in grades 2 through 8 are performing on grade level, which prompted goal number 2B, which is to increase student performance on the STAR math test by 5 normal curve equivalent points. The team also discovered that intervention services for students were not available district-wide, not uniformly implemented, and also were largely dependent upon the availability of categorical funds. So, within the same district, a student attending one school may experience something completely different from a student attending another school with regard to academic intervention. At this time, the specific actions and services recommended in the first 2 LCAP goals are in the process of being implemented. We have already taken steps to reduce class sizes. We've consulted with Dr. Susan Hall, a literacy expert from the 95% group, with the goal of developing a tiered intervention model, and staff development sessions are being planned. A literacy leadership team was developed to address the need for academic intervention in reading for all students. The steps taken by this group include looking at data, determining needs, considering solutions, and developing recommendations. The consultants met with the literacy leadership team over the course of the fall in numerous meetings, as well as with coaches and principals. The recommendations of the literacy leadership team are as follows. Focus on data analysis and the consistent use of the DIBEL's assessment. Conduct further diagnostic testing for students with identified weaknesses. At every elementary school, create a multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS model. Establish a daily 30-minute intervention block in which students are regrouped across the grade level to receive intervention on specific skills, deficits from all available educators. Provide instructional materials and lesson plans for the intervention block. Provide training for coaches, intervention teachers, classroom teachers, and aides. The needs assessment included a review of special education data and indicators of performance. The team learned special education students do not spend enough time in general education with instruction in the core curriculum. The district is not meeting targets for serving students in the least restrictive environment, and students are served in special education a higher percentage of time and in general education settings for lower percentages of time than the state requires. And, in the absence of a system-wide model for intervention, a larger number of students are identified for special education services than the state allows. About 13% of our population are identified, instead of 10% of the population. We also learned that many special education students who could be served appropriately in their neighborhood schools ride the bus to special day classes at other sites, sometimes for up to an hour, resulting in transportation costs, disruptions, and hardships for students and their families. The Least Restrictive Environment Committee was established to address these needs and worked parallel to the literacy leadership team. The committee studied the ELA-ELD framework, reviewed data, identified needs and concerns, and options and solutions were considered, resulting in recommendations. These recommendations, along with those from the literacy leadership team, form the basis for a district-wide intervention model. The LRE committee recommendation includes establishing a multi-tiered system of supports based on ELA-ELD framework and create at least 2 intensive intervention centers on every campus to serve the instructional intervention needs of students. The IEP process would be used to identify current students who are in special day classes who can be included in general education classes, with appropriate special education support to be provided in the intensive intervention centers. Some students may be served for a short amount of time. Others may be served for a longer part of their day. With intensive intervention centers and 30-minute intervention blocks in place at every school, we will be able to identify some students who will no longer need services in special day classes. These students, about an average of 7 students per campus, could return to their neighborhood schools for services, as appropriate, and any unnecessary special day classes would be disbanded. However, at least 6 classes would be maintained and distributed regionally across the district so that mild-moderate students who need the special day classes setting would have the opportunity for appropriate placement. We would continue to provide special day classes for students with emotional disturbances, autism, or moderate severe disabilities who require a more restrictive service model. The basis for these recommendations come from the study of the California ELA-ELD framework. These are documents provided by the state of California which give us the foundation for our educational programs. A handout which summarizes some of these key recommendations is being provided. As stated in the framework, it is important to note that students experiencing difficulty reading do not necessarily have a learning disability. Students who are eligible for special education services must be challenged to excel with the general education curriculum. Members of the IEP teams, students, teachers, parents, and administrators work collaboratively to improve results for students with disabilities. Education specialists and general education teachers share responsibility for developing and implementing the IEPs. Most students with disabilities are served exclusively in the general education classroom and receive instruction primarily from the general education teachers. General education teachers and specialists may engage in co-teaching. The framework also introduces the multi-tiered System of Support, MTSS, a model for providing instruction and intervention for all students. In a multi-tiered system of support, Tier 1 instruction should meet the needs of about 80% of students. Known as First Teaching, Tier 1 instruction should be research-based, high quality, and differentiated for all students in general education. Tier 2 support is for about 15% of our students and provides specific, targeted support to some students who may not be experiencing success in general education. Tier 3 support is the most intensive and intended for a very small portion of our student population, about 5%, and focuses on accelerating students who are consistently behind. Some new staffing structures are also being recommended for the MTSS. Classroom teachers and instructional intervention aides provide the Tier 1 core, universal instruction for all students. During the Tier 2, 30-minute intervention block, which is to be instruction by the academic coach, there are classroom teachers, aides, and an instructional intervention teacher. In Tier 3, the intensive intervention centers would be staffed by special education aides, and with teachers who have mild-moderate credentials and special education teachers with dual, mild-moderate, and general education credentials, to increase the flexibility of being able to serve a variety of students. In order to meet the LCAP and student achievement goals, academic coaches and principals will work collaboratively. Initially, the primary focus of our academic coaches will be on intervention, establishing this multi-tiered system of support. Coaches will support effective instruction by providing demo lessons and co-planning co-teaching with new teachers. The coach will guide new teachers through the induction process and will be available to support veteran teachers as well. As seen in the graphic, it is more important to note that the principal sets the expectations, and the coach is there to provide the opportunities for support. This presentation is part of the next steps in the process. We are sharing the progress toward implementing the LCAP, reviewing committee recommendations, and gathering input as we consider how to establish the MTSS and the IICs at every school. Plans will need to be refined as we determine the needs for staffing, finalize timelines, purchase appropriate materials, and provide training. In addition to Goals 1 and 2, the LCAP addresses 8 other goals. Goals 3 and 4 focus on increasing English learners' English proficiency and redesignation rates. While the actions printed in red for Goals 3 and 4 of the LCAP are actively being addressed, others are still to come in future years as funds permit. For Goal 5, as seen in red, a committee has been working on a scope and sequence for PE instruction. Other actions will follow at a later date as funds permit. Steps are being taken to accomplish Goal 6. Participation in the Kern County Superintendent of Schools Truancy Consortium has been maintained, and 2 junior high schools are implementing an in-school suspension model. A school-wide positive behavior plan, PBIS, is being piloted at 2 school sites, and the Safe Schools Ambassadors Program has been established at every junior high. The work on Goal 6 will continue, but intervention counseling services cannot be expanded until additional funds are available. Phases 1 and 2 of the technology plan are well underway, utilizing funds from short-term bonds from within the general obligation bond structure. By the end of this year, students in grades 3 through 8 and special education students will have access to technology. To accomplish Goal 8, a new math book was purchased, language arts units were developed, and training was provided to all teachers during staff development days. Additional LCAP actions have been deferred for lack of funding at this time. To accomplish Goal 10, a district newsletter has been distributed electronically to staff monthly, and plans are underway for broadening communication to parents and other stakeholders. It's important to evaluate the progress of the LCAP implementation and provide feedback on next steps. Work this year is focused on the priorities which were established during the needs assessment and LCAP development process. Your input on progress and future priorities is crucial as we all work together to reach the district LCAP goals.